Hello, friends. Why am I wearing headphones? I always do this every single time I start. It's because I wear headphones all day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Step Back Countdown stream for, oh gosh, September 6th already. I say that every week. Hi. So, for anybody who's new to this stream, in the hour before a new Step Back video comes out, I hang out with the audience, answer some questions, talk about stuff. I usually go on some sort of anti-capitalist rant. And then at the end of the hour, a new video is born. And you guys get to enjoy that. It's kind of like the idea of YouTube Premieres, which is a feature they're trying to add down the pipe. They're slowly rolling it out, but, you know, I did it first. Yeah. So to give you guys a bit of a wrap-up of things that we should cover, first thing is I have a meetup happening this weekend. So on Saturday, on the 8th, there's going to be a meetup with myself, Mexi, and Thought Slime, and we're going to find ourselves doing something. Oh my. So many questions already. We're going to have all sorts of good conversations. I hope that some of you guys will be able to come out, and it'll be real crazy fun. Last time we did it, it was really great. And so I am really looking forward to seeing if we can get more of you guys, because Mexi's fan base really came out in good numbers, and I would really love to see some of you Step Back Arenos coming out. David Chipman, we're meeting at the exact same place that we met last time, since I know you were there. It's at Disgraceland, which is on Bloor Street at 7 o'clock at the PM. Oh, yeah. So, oh my, there's a lot of good questions coming in. All right. Ronald Ham is in here. Ooga Booga's in here. Hungarian. Are you new? Waldo, Michael Collins, Snapper, Ron, Craig Morrison. Cool. 255 AD. Good old channel regular. Probably already seen the video since 255 AD is a patron. Who else? Michael Kirchner, another patron. Hey, how's it going? A wingless monkey, and Daniel. Yeah, Dan, there's a new stream every week. Hopefully there'll be two soon. I'm working on when and where and how that next one would work. You are the penny farthing person. Sweet. You are the person who's actually making a penny farthing. That's cool. All right. You get a plane ticket from South Africa. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. Oh boy. Okay. And Emre Yurt is here. And yeah, wingless monkey. Okay. So there's so many of you out here, and I don't want to. I was just sitting around collecting questions, but there's already 7, and we've been going for 3 minutes. So I should probably get talking. You treat your fans better than anyone. You're awesome, dude. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. I'm still just blown away that you people are out there watching the stuff that I put out, and I feel like this is a platform that's about interaction and communication, and so I really like to do as much as I can to keep that line alive. Okay, so let's start with Ooga Booga's question. Tristan, what gave you the idea of making your second channel? So my second channel, I decided fairly recently that I'm going to probably halt on the D&D stuff for a little bit. But basically the idea behind the Tristan Johnson channel is that I had a desire to make content that needed to be on the YouTube platform, or like I had ideas for YouTube videos that wouldn't have fit a Step Back video. And I noticed that when I was doing the folklore Know Your Fantasy series that, one, the videos weren't performing very well, and second of all, they didn't really match with the sorts of fans of Step Back. Like it was definitely for a different demographic than Step Back. And so I thought that if I made a second channel, I could do some of those Know Your Fantasy videos and talk about the folklore background of popular things in Dungeons and Dragons, but at the same time get more into D&D stuff. But then as time moved along, I got a new job and things really started to eat up my time, and I started to think that that second channel was not a efficient use of my my energy. I only have so many hours in the day, and I already spend so much of it making videos. Literally 2 of my 3 jobs are making videos. And so I decided to give the D&D stuff a rest, because I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to let D&D be like the one thing that's just for me. It's not for monetizing my hobbies. It's just a thing that I do that's for fun for me. And, you know, it's just a thing that happens. It's very much a thing that I can just do for fun. And so, like, I put it to rest. But I do have ideas for other video essays, things like the kind of work that I do now, but they're not about history. And I would love to have a platform like the Tristan Johnson channel in order to be able to make these things. And I'm going to give you guys a link since somebody asked. But yeah, like I've been thinking a lot about irony poisoning, and I've been wanting to make a video about irony poisoning, and how I remember having this conversation shortly before the Trump election, actually. So there's shortly before the Trump's election, there was a sort of, oh man, where is this thing? I can't do that. Okay. Anyways, there was there's a time while the irony poisoning. All right, yeah, let's talk about irony poisoning. It was so on. So when I was in a situation in which I was making a video, okay, I'm getting so distracted trying to find this link. All right, here's the link. All right, cool. So when the election was happening, when Donald Trump's at the time we did not know that Donald Trump was going to get elected. I have a friend, or at least he's still a friend, but we don't live in the same city anymore, because I lived in London back then. And we were having this conversation about whether the election, like I was pretty sure that I was still thinking that Hillary Clinton was going to win, but I thought that Trump had a higher chance of winning than most people did. And my friend disagreed, saying that no, it was pretty in the bag for Hillary Clinton. And he was a researcher who studied trolling. And he was saying that kind of the dumb stuff you hear when you have like, there's kind of like dumb stuff that happens when you have like internet excuses for horrible things. So I was saying that like Trump stands a good chance of winning because there's like this rise in like neo-Nazis and far right-wing people. And then he said, well, no, those are all, that's all just irony. This is all just ironic. It's just people joking. And I was skeptical of this. And irony poisoning is technically when you basically get so deep into saying things ironically and doing things ironically that you basically stop being ironic. You know, there's a few different ways you could do it. It's just that, okay, if you're ironic all the time, if you're an ironic Nazi all the time, at what point do you just stop? Are you just a Nazi? Things like that. On top of that, though, there's also things like the mere exposure effect. And the mere exposure effect has this thing where, like, even if you're just exposed to an idea regularly, and it is reinforced over and over and over again. So if, say, you hang out on 4chan for a good chunk of your life, and there's just constant racist jokes and constant ironic Nazis and things like that, that over time you start to get more exposure to these ideas. And on a long enough time scale, it's going to change the way that you think. And if you live in a situation in like deep, since irony was like the sense of humor of the internet, you do that long enough, you're going to unironically change your disposition. And I have this theory that there are a lot of Nazis out there where this is sort of their origin story. And that there is a really nasty, that I think that some of the nastiest things on the internet that have come in the post-Trump era have their roots less in like hate crimes and like hate groups from beforehand, and more have it in that we had this toxic, like, we realized too late that the humor of punching down has negative side effects, especially when people get really into it for a long period of time. And that the long-term exposures led to a lot of people embracing far-right political ideas just because they spent a good chunk of their social life in this toxic soup of ironic racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia that was getting less and less ironic over time, to the point where now they're just openly racists. And that's what I'm going to call irony poisoning. And I'm going to make the case that this is what has caused the internet far right. And I think that we could have seen the writing of the wall with Gamergate, where Gamergate turned into a misogynistic hate crusade that went way too far. Trying to give death threats to people who are saying that, you know, the video game that you like has some problematic aspects to it, shows that there's a radicalizing effect that just came out of it. And I'd like to wrap my friend in on this video and talk a lot about how irony, the ironic punching down comedy just is not good. And it just leads to radicalizing people, even if you mean it or not, because, you know, there's the Archie Bunker effect, where even if you make a fake character who is designed to be disliked, that on a long enough period of time, people will, if you have a big platform, people will always find a way to misinterpret, or they just will misinterpret. It's just a law of large numbers. And so on a long enough time scale, this is what will happen. And yeah, irony is dead. The internet, the way that the whole jokey thing of the internet is going to have to go away. And the idea of the offensive jokes that are like, oh no, we're not being racist, it's just a racist joke. And I think that needs to be collectively examined, because it has larger social impacts than I think we anticipated. And that the internet is going to have to internet culture is going to have to grow up very fast and deal with its own toxicity issues. But that obviously would not fit in a step back video. So I think that but I feel a strong desire to make it. So at some point, I think I'm going to put together a video essay and put it on my second channel and just watch. That's going to get super famous, and then I don't know what's going to happen at that point. Okay. That was a lot. That was a big answer. I apologize for that. Ronald Ham asks, I have a question. Have you been paying any attention to the Kavanaugh hearings? I haven't. Honestly, the day-to-day stuff of the hearings don't really matter all that much. I don't particularly care how Kavanaugh likes to spin his own words. Kavanaugh getting confirmed will probably result in the rollback of abortion rights in America. The Republicans have the numbers to make that happen. And honestly, I don't see Kavanaugh, even if Kavanaugh stands up, hand on his heart, and does a long and entreated response about how important the women's right to choose is, he's going to get confirmed by the Republicans, and he's going to roll back abortion laws. It's just going to happen. The Republicans have the numbers. The time to stop Robert Kavanaugh was in 2016. It's not now. And I think that people, again, going back to the ironic racists, that there were a lot of people who didn't think through the consequences of their actions. And this is going to be one of the things that we are going to have to deal with, or at least Americans are going to have to deal with, as a direct response of how they voted in 2016. And I hope that that makes them think one way or another. Because elections have consequences. And I don't see any, I don't actually believe in bipartisanship. I don't think it has really ever existed except on things that universally screwed over marginalized people or were used to expand a bloated military budget. So, yeah, the only way to I don't see any redemption for Brett Kavanaugh. Sorry. Okay. Is violence necessary for political progress? I sincerely hope not, but everybody keeps saying that I'm wrong on that front. I would like to think that instead of tearing down the old world and causing chaos and destruction and death, that we could instead make a better world inside of the old world that eventually makes the old world obsolete. How that happens, I'm not sure, but I feel like the concept of violent revolution has never led to long-term positive change. It always seems to result in the most authoritarian and the most violent people coming to power, and then creating a revolutionary state that already, because of the fact that they murdered people in order to get to power, basically already have their enemies baked into their entire system. You know? You kill somebody's father, brother, sister, mother in order to get into power, they're going to hate you and your ideology no matter how good it is, because you murdered their family member. And I think that we don't give as much emphasis on how violence might be a fast solution to a political problem, but it's often not a good long-term one, because it sows the seeds of its own destruction. And in doing so, and making your better world, you're going to cause a lot of suffering in the long term. Hungarian, what do you think of Hungary's border wall? I'm glad not many people know about it. Yeah, because it's super duper racist. Maybe there's some real scary ideas of Hungary building fences around its borders. Trust me, the last time Hungary got this way, things did not end well for the world. Yeah, I don't, especially in these Eastern European countries, which had so many of like the concentration camps and death camps, and had the horrors of Nazism inflicted on them directly, that they would be so open to the exact same rhetoric and doing some of the exact same things in order to have extraordinary similarities with the Holocaust. Yeah, I don't understand why no one sees the irony in, or why there's so few people see the irony in Hungary. But then I think we're starting to see in a longer term thing that as World War II exits living memory, which it pretty much is at this point, anybody who fought in World War II would be at the youngest in their late 80s, so there's not a whole lot of them left. Once World War II as World War II exits living memory, seems like some countries like Hungary and good constituents of people in places like France and Germany are like, hey, let's do this Nazism thing again. And I find that extraordinarily terrifying. And I don't understand. I don't understand how. I guess it's like ignorance of history, right? It's not knowing the depths of the horrors of the Holocaust and the end result of what happens when you espouse like nationalism. Nationalism was this growing idea in the 19th century, and it led to so much death and conquest and colonization and violence and death and colonization and everything. And then it spilled over in two of the largest bloodbaths in human history with World War I and World War II. And in World War II, you saw the natural conclusion of nationalism, which is genocide. And then once that happened, we were like, oh shit, this nationalism idea is actually not that good. And now everyone's like, no, let's do nationalism again. So like, yeah. It terrifies me. It honestly terrifies me. Okay, 25580 question. What do you want to say about video games and technological progress? Video games and technological progress. I don't know. Video game. I'm not anti-video games. I spend a lot of time playing them, but I think they're a fun medium. I am less convinced of their like immense artistic contributions yet. I think that there's been very few. The way that the industry of video games work make it very hard for them to be good art in a lot of cases, just because they just seem to lock on to the inspirations to follow the same sort of ideas over and over and over again. And I'm wondering, and the way that it works, like the way that the video game scene seems to be developing in two separate directions. The AAA games that are getting fewer and fewer, bigger and bigger releases could very easily collapse with a few, because like now you see in video game education or a video game like development world that sometimes one failed game can kill an entire development company. And that means that the only gaming companies that survive, or game companies that survive, are huge corporations like EA and Activision and things like that. And so, and that's where like a lot of the attention goes. And then there's also this thriving indie scene. But it seems like, I don't know, I feel very like for things like the indie scene that develops games like every once in a while you see some really great developments, like, you know, the whole Battle Royale game becoming a thing lately. But like, so instead of like having, but like with the Kickstarter scene, instead of having these huge corporations pumping out like just machine version copies of the exact same game over and over and over again, because that's the only thing that they think is a safe bet in order to sell, in the Kickstarter scene, you see just this constant rehashing of old ideas. Because basically the successful Kickstarter games only seem to be successful if they're taking a genre or a IP or an idea that has been that has died over the years, like, and bring it back. So it's a lot of like new retro games, which is good. I like the idea of like bringing back some of these old ideas and updating them, but like there's not a ton between those that allow for true innovation and like really new areas to go into. And ever since I got into tabletop RPGs, I've just been completely underwhelmed with the storytelling capacity of video games. I think that if you want good storytelling through mechanics, there's still a lot of good examples in the video game world, but it'll always be second fiddle to tabletop role-playing games. And so now that I have like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, for the most part, video games, I don't know. They always feel like it feels like you're playing a D&D game, but with a really railroady GM. That being said, I would love to see, like, there are games that, a lot of the genres of games that I really like are developing in directions that I wish they wouldn't. I wish that, like, for example, I think that not enough people, when Dwarf Fortress, there's a lot of like Dwarf Fortress clones that I'm like, all right, Dwarf Fortress looks like hot garbage, so I don't want to play it. But like, I really wish that somebody would take inspiration from Dwarf Fortress's world creation system rather than its like, base building person management system, and was able to make something like a role-playing game, a computer RPG that has like a procedurally generated world with a procedurally generated history that was all your own. But that doesn't seem to happen, and that's I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mind here. I guess like I see the gaming world going in a direction that is not for me, but I'm always open to be surprised. Stellaris was a huge surprise for me, and I thought it was really, really good. I'd love to see more games that take on that emergent storytelling thing. All right, I'm ranting so much today. I have no idea why. Ooga Booga, a few streams ago, you said that you thought that there were no good police officers. Would you mind elaborating? Okay. So the police officers, the entire concept of policing is one that is actually way more recent than a lot of people give it credit for, and is basically the primary function is to shut down organized labor. But on a longer time scale, the institution of policing, the idea of having first responders who are there to be pretty much just to be a source of violence, is fundamentally a unethical institution that should be replaced with something better, something more egalitarian, and it should have its core functions amended. Does that mean that there are not good people? Does that mean that everybody who's a police officer is not a good person? I don't think that's true. I think that people become police officers because can go into policing because of a noble desire to help others, but they have been led wayward by propaganda. And once they get into the system, they're going to find all of the incentives against them being good people. And so policing has a large burnout rate, and I think that this is why. And so, yeah. Dan asks, who was worse, Stalin or Mao? Oh, geez. They're both pretty bad. I'd probably say Mao's... Oh, no, because Stalin also mixed nationalism and communism in a weird way. I'd probably say Stalin for the... Like, they both killed massive amounts of people. I think the Great Leap Forward is responsible for more deaths than Stalin's purges, but there's still tens of millions of people dead on both of their hands. I would say, though, that Stalin is primarily responsible for basically ruining communism forever and making it irredeemable to a lot of people. Taking the ideas of Marx and associating them with some of the most violent regimes in human history has done a ton of long-term damage that I think that Stalin really cannot, there's no real end for that. Okay. Let's keep going. Waldo, how was your week? My week was crazy. I wound up in a lot of situations this week where I was called in to the office without any warning, and I ended up like having to do a lot of things like that I had no forewarning about. I was just like, here's a thing that you have to do right now. And that led to the step back video getting being like, just like I uploaded it this morning, which is not really a thing that I find super comfortable with. But yeah, so like I had a pretty bananas week this way. But it's the worst is over now. Now that the step back video is out, I can relax a little bit. 255 AD, what would happen if every country on Earth decided to stop engaging in trade with the US? Ooh. Well, there'd be severe financial issues. The idea, if the US economy just like stopped all trade and had to rely entirely on internal production, it would not have enough. It would like the price of manufactured goods would go up drastically. And it would take quite a while before manufacturing hit what they even needed to get the things that they needed. So the United States would suffer terribly, but because the American dollar is the like international currency in which all other currencies are based, it would have all sorts of ripple effects on the world economy, especially with all of those private corporations that hold debt of other countries that they could just there's the U.S. basically functions on the international economy like the world's bank, and also as the world's purchaser. And so, because they have lots of money and they have all the banks, and so I could see a lot of issues there. I imagine that it would be quite dangerous to do that so fast. Just cut off all trade right away. Ever thought of making a video on the history of games and gaming? Maybe a series? Actually, Crash Course did that probably better than I could do. I don't think that I have the... I feel like that would be outside of my area of expertise in a big way. Another second channel related question, sort of. How did you get into D&D? It was a thing I was always interested in it. I played it in 2011 for a one-shot when over like a Victoria Day weekend, and it was really fun. But then like when I was living in London and I was in grad school, it was always a thing that I'll get into it someday, but I had other things I wanted to do. How I got into it in a big way is when I moved to Toronto and I had no friends. And I had no social life. And so in order to meet new people and make new friends, I joined a D&D group. And ever since then, it's been pretty great. I've enjoyed it a lot. And then I got into running games, and now I'm a DM mostly. I don't really play that much anymore. But I meet new people, and I get new people into the game, and I've made acquaintances into friends, and friends into good friends, and I don't know. It's a really great game for the fact that sorry. D&D is a really great game for dealing with the fact that it's really hard to make friends as an adult. All right. I got to start getting through these questions fast. I already have more questions than minutes left in the stream. Do you find yourself at odds politically with other history or alternate history YouTubers? Mr. Beat, Monsieur Zed, Alternate History Hub, okay. Okay, so do I find myself politically at odds with other history YouTubers? Yes. If you look around, now some of these don't count, but if you look at a lot of history YouTube, it's very, very right-wing. Very, very right-wing. For the example, like, I had to kick Feature History off my Discord. I had to ban him from my Discord for being a right-wing troll. Yeah, there, with like only a few exceptions. Actually, no, there are no. I think that I am the most left-wing history channel on YouTube, and a lot of history content out there is very right-wing, and that makes it hard for Step Back to build an audience in that realm, because I don't pat people on the back and make them feel good about their country, and that makes people mad. Now the people who make some of this content, I like a lot of them. I like Mr. Beat. Mr. Beat and I are really good friends. We shared a hotel room at VidCon. Also, Cody from the Alternate History Hub. We could not be more politically different, but we get along pretty well. And you know, we have that show together and everything like that. Even though, yeah, he shits on anarchism, and I think it's because he doesn't understand it. But like, Emperor Tiger Star is like a socialist too, and him and I seem to get along all right. They just kind of skirt around my anarchism stuff, but what can you do? But yeah, there's I find that being a cultural and social history focused channel has really set me apart from other history channels on this platform, because with like the exception of like The Origin of Everything, nobody else is doing anything but like political and military history. Like, that's all anybody does. So me doing literally all of the other branches of history has given me a strong niche, but because those are things that right-wingers don't care about, it has made a lot of history YouTube fans pretty hostile to me in a lot of ways, which is kind of interesting. But what can you do? So my my long-term plan will be to convert history non-history fans into history fans. Okay, Girthax, what are your thoughts on EUCD, the EU Meme Police Bill? I don't really know a whole lot about it, but it sounds like an almost impossible law to enforce. And if it is something that they try to enforce, it's probably going to only be select cases that are pretty egregious. But I'd be, it's about like protecting copyright or something weird like that. I don't know. I don't see any way that the law that they are proposing is one that they can actually enforce in a large way. And everybody seems to universally hate it. So it's an example that the European Union doesn't know what they're doing. And even if they and if it gets used in any meaningful way, it's going to get fought. Wouldn't be surprised if there are multiple lawsuits against it already by like civil liberties organizations and stuff like that. 255 AD wants to know, would you have voted for Hillary if you were a U.S. American? That would depend very heavily on what state I was living in. But if I was in any way in a state where I thought the Republicans could win, I would be voting for Hillary Clinton. Yeah, it's it would be the best option in 2016. Yeah. The fact that she was the best candidate in the 2016 election who had a chance of winning says a lot, and it means that there's a lot of issues with the world. So it's not saying I'm a fan of Hillary Clinton. It's saying I'm, you know, this is the decisions that you're reduced to. Will the UN disband like the League of Nations did? I don't think so. The League of Nations was very small and very underfunded. I think that the UN plays a pivotal role in international relations. Probably not as big as I would like, but it's far too much of an institution compared to the League of Nations. But yeah. Michael Kirchner, if you voted for Hillary in the general, you have nothing to feel bad about. You did a strategic vote for the end of to stop fascism in America and lost. If you voted for Hillary in the primaries, though, we're gonna have to talk. That's me. We'll work it out. I think there's a lot of people who voted for Hillary in the primaries and regret it, including ContraPoints. Anyways, as a sort of Jeremy Corbyn fan, what is your opinion on the Alite Ions claiming he's anti-Semitic? I've heard about this a few times. I don't really know the details. I know that there's a lot of conservatives who try to brand anybody who criticizes Israel as anti-Semitic, but I'm starting to hear that there might be a little bit more to it than that. And so I don't know what it is. I'm not anti-Corbyn yet, but because, you know, I think like if it's literally just like criticizing Israel and supporting Palestinians, then like sure, but like okay, that's not anti-Semitism. That's just a canard that that a lot of like very hawkish pro-Israel people use in order to suppress criticism. Okay, 255 AD, what would seizing the means of production actually look like? I'm pretty sure I'd get arrested if I just tried to take over the bread factory. That's true. Honestly, this would have to be fought in so many small ways. Like, this is why, like, I don't see, like, just expropriating everything and hoping to take over is a viable option. I think that really it's trying to make your own bread factory or make your own sort of economy that doesn't or relies less on the capitalist economy and is explicitly not capitalist. And to the point where as they collapse and they fall apart, anarchist or socialist communes or organizations just function in a way that that capitalism can't, because capitalism's too up and down, it's too unstable, it's too inefficient, and so on a long enough time scale, I think that it will win out. It's just that we have to stop like thinking of it as like we have to stop thinking like statists. We have to stop thinking that like in order to have the society you want, you need to take over the state and force it to happen. What you need to do is make the society you want and don't care about the institutions that exist today. Try to do like just try to like make the society you want and watch the old society decay and fall apart due to its inefficiencies and its internal contradictions. Yeah, there's going to be resistance. Yeah, there's going to be tough times with that. But I think that that's the way that you make lasting change. But that's why, like, I think that like anarchist organizations should be doing more of their like book fairs and free stores and time banking organizations than like you know, trying to wax lyrically about how they're going to destroy or how they're going to somehow with like, you know, even like well armed with small arms, how they're going to like overthrow nuclear armed states with like modern militaries and drones and stuff. It's ridiculous. Jenga Truma 21, do you know that Lawrence Southern's documentary on South Africa? Yes, I have heard about it. It's going to be racist AF because Lawrence Southern is racist AF. There's a great video, and I don't know what the original channel is, but it's been reposted on a whole bunch of channels, including 3 Arrows. that's a really great historical breakdown of the systems of the racist systems and all of the hoaxes and far-right conspiracy theories that are pretty prominent in South Africa. And that video is one of the best things done. And I hope that I'd like to give that more attention than Lauren Southern's documentary. I don't particularly care about Lauren Southern or whatever her plan or her racist things are. We need to counteract. We just need to counteract the message heavy. But it's just the latest step in a very long chain of far-right conspiracy theories about South Africa. I have an idea of, like, I have like a website here. I'll actually link this to you guys. This is a website that where you can submit video ideas or you can vote on video ideas. And yeah, Rational Disconnect. That's the video I was talking about. So this is a place where you can actually submit video ideas or upvote ones that you want to see. I know there's a South Africa video there, so if you really want to see me talk about it, I can do that. You should upvote that. But I feel like I'm going to make white South Afrikaners angry, but all right. Oh boy. Okay. Got a really powerful. So this hour came up way faster than I thought it will. Step back history. How long will it be until the Soviet Union exits living memory? Geez, it would be like mid-century, I think, unless like radical life extension happens and then all crap is off the table. But around the 2040s, 2050s is when you're going to start seeing the Soviet Union exit living memory. Like in the 2040s or 2050s, I'm going to be like 70 years old, and I was a baby. I was like 2, 3 when the Soviet Union collapsed, and so I have no like cognizant memories of the Soviet Union. And so like if I'm 60 or 70, it's not the Soviet Union leaving memory, it's leaving living memory. Did you see Emperor Tiger Star's video on history YouTubers? I have not, Waldo. I have not. Oh, yeah. We'll talk about streams. That's a good question. I'm quickly running out of time, but I'm going to keep going. So I did not see Emperor Tiger Star's video on history YouTubers. I should probably take a look. What are your thoughts on the recent news about those in Trump's administration are trying to undermine and oust him? Oh, it's all based on, what's his name? It's based on a new book called, like, Fear or something like that. It looks like an interesting book that, it's an interesting book, and I would really like to see how that works out. It seems like from what I know, it's Woodward and it's from Woodward and Bernstein. Like it's from All the Presidents. Like it's the person who did the big story on Richard Nixon and Watergate back in the day. So like this is like a really legit person, and it sounds pretty. It's pretty like over the top. Like it seems pretty logical to me. It sounds very much like how his personality seems to live on, so it doesn't surprise me that there are a lot of people who are trying to undermine him in his government because he's like unstable. Kate Cole, does non-capitalist meaning not having currency? Can a society exist without a system to establish value, traded distribution? Yeah. We have an economic system right now that produces 40% more stuff than we need. If we lived in a situation, I think like Thought Slime talked about this in his Q and Anarchy video that was pretty good. Like, the tragedy of the commons idea is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. And we do have more stuff than we need. So like the idea that we need to have unequal distribution of resources in order to make the world function is silly. There might be some like, conspicuous overconsumption if we made like a radical change right away. But on a long enough time scale, if you just got rid of money and everyone just took the things they wanted and did the work they needed to do, we would be perfectly fine very fast. There's a video by Non-Compete that came out last week that shows that, like, honestly, the work that would be needed to done to make society function would probably only require about 10 to 20 hours of labor a week for everybody if everyone did it equally. And that could probably be reduced with automation without cost because, there'd be no money. But if you need something transitionary that has Marxist principles but still functions as a currency, you could always go into time banking, which is the idea that you trade time. So I help somebody, I fix somebody's bike for an hour. I have an hour of labor's credit that I can get for, say, an hour of somebody fixing or painting my house or something like that. You trade in work hours that has Marxist principles in it, but it's a currency. I could see that being interesting, especially as a transition out of a capitalist economy as we move to smaller and more localized communities and communes. But I don't see that as an end result. And I do think that the optimal solution would be to move away from a society that's based on capitalist principles and move towards one that is without currency. And now, of course, we'll eventually end up with fully automated luxury gay-based communism, which is the optimal result. What do you make of David Graeber's hypothesis that capitalism has survived by morphing into white-collar feudalism? David Graeber seems to be pretty smart on that front. I agree with him. I'd have to read what his arguments are, but for the most part, that sounds about right. Sunflower Socialist, are you reading the Chapo Guide to Revolution? I bought it. I actually pre-ordered it a long, long time ago, and I would probably move. I think I read a couple chapters of it, and then I stopped because I got a little bit distracted. But I'll probably pick up reading it again. I definitely should read Bullshit Jobs. That is on my list of books to read for sure. So once I finish the Chapo Guide to Revolution, I'm reading a book right now that once it's done, I'll probably read that next. But I read a couple chapters already, and it was pretty funny. So I'm happy with it existing. Is fascism the end result of capitalism? Yes. Are you a pacifist? Doesn't pacifism support the state? No. Pacifism supports long-term and permanent solutions to political problems and not fast ones that have their own destruction built right into them. I talked about this a bit earlier in the stream, so I don't want to repeat myself, but there is, when you introduce violence in order to change governments or try to upend a political situation, for the most part, you don't succeed. And even if you are militarily more powerful than your enemy, you are going to basically just create a violent state or one that has that's so embattled and has so many enemies because you've killed so many people's families and loved ones that you're going to be constantly needing to use more and more violence in order to stay together. And along the time scale, that just encourages more authoritarianism and more violence, and you eventually collapse like a certain Soviet Union I know. So don't do that. Because it is a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Do you think that punching Nazis is ethical, even though it's not pacifist? I have complicated feelings on the punching of Nazis. I think that it certainly feels good to do, and definitely there is a security benefit to making Nazis afraid to go outside. Whether or not it helps the cause of making people dislike Nazis is a different thing. The fact that they're able to cry, like the fact that they're able to cry victim because of the punching of Nazis, because I don't know. I think that hurts things a little bit, but even then, I'm not like. I think that it would be. I think that I have less problems with it because of its impact on keeping Nazis afraid of going outside and being Nazis. That would be nice. 255 AD, could you do a video about the conquest of the Canary Islands? Well, I'm going to link this again. This is a link to the idea thing. If you want a video about the history of the Canary Islands, submit it on there and see who votes it up. Okay. Why is voting such a taboo issue in anarchism, even though direct and pragmatic action is valued? Often voting can make things left, which helps a lot of people. Because some people who consider themselves anarchists are more concerned with how many obscure Eastern European authors and philosophers you've read, rather than doing something that'll actually make lives better for people today. Balstrami. Is it ever possible to engage people who don't seem to want to listen to facts? I had an argument with my granddad, who claimed Russia was communist and violent. It's up in the UK. Yes, most people don't respond to facts. Only eggheads and academics do. For the most part, people respond to narrative and emotion. And you need to formulate ideas about leftist politics, not based on debating the labor theory of value with people, but you need to be telling them the narrative that we're being screwed over and we need to move away from that. Would you ever stream on Twitch? I mean, I have a bigger audience on YouTube, so I feel like it would be a waste of my energy to stream on Twitch. Tristan, do you know of Anthony Oliveira? He lives in Toronto. I don't know who Anthony Oliveira is. I remember you saying you were a theater kid in school. What characters and roles did you play as? I was not a theater kid in school. The last play that I was ever in was in the 4th grade, where I was the dog in Peter Pan. No, in high school, I was a metalhead, and I was in a band that did really bad Metallica covers. And I played bass, and I sang, and I wore a leather jacket, and I grew my hair really long, and I had like an afro. It was just awful. Yeah. I think what I said is I should have been a theater kid in high school, but I wasn't. If I was more honest with myself, I would have been a theater kid in high school. Michael Kirshner, could you see any country leaving the United Nations? We take it for granted the UN pretty much covers every sovereign state with a few exceptions. However, this is a very modern phenomenon. It could be possible, especially if there was like a large secession movement. But for the most part, if you want to be on the world stage and you want to be recognized by the global community, it's really the only way to do it. What is the most successful anarchist society of all time? I would probably say human society from the time that we evolved into Homo sapiens sapiens until the advent of agriculture. That's probably the longest anarchist society. Tristan, CNT or FAI? FAI. You're gonna start doing 2-hour streams. Oh, talking to Kappa. Never mind. I am planning on doing longer streams on. It's looking like Tuesdays, but I have to make sure. I have to see some stuff out first. How would you value one form of labor compared to others? The idea, Girthax, is that there's really, in the long term, there really isn't that much of a distinction between labor time spent with different types of like stuff. Like the value of something that you make is based on how much time went into it. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's like the core of Marxist economics, that nobody's time is worth any more or less than anybody else's. Currency can exist without the negative aspects: time, Paracon, planning orders, etc. And it's up to talk about it. Oh, Radical Reviewer, you're actually here. Oh, okay. Have you read Michael Parenti or William Bloom books? I have not. All right, last question. What would happen if all borders were removed? You would the biggest impact I think that we should talk about with that is that there would be a lot of workers moving to places to get better deals, i.e., moving to countries that have higher wages. And you would get rid of the inequality that comes between companies being able to move to other countries when they want to get lower labor, and people not being able to move to places where the pay is higher. If that happens, a lot of things change. I'm not exactly sure how that would go, but that could be things. All right, it is 2 o'clock. There's a new video out. Here is the link. Thank you guys so much. This was such a busy hour. You guys always think of the best questions. So you guys watch the video, like, share, subscribe. Have an amazing week, and I hope that things go well for you, whichever that is.